Former Taoiseach Albert Reynolds passed away this morning at the age of 81 following a long illness. I'm here in Drumcondra in County Dublin to meet with his successor as Fianna Fail leader, his government colleague, and indeed a future Taoiseach in his own right at that particular point in time when Albert Reynolds stood down from office, former Taoiseach Bertie Ahern. So I'm going to discuss Albert Reynolds' life and times with him. You served under Jack Lynch, then Charles Haughey, then Albert Reynolds. Obviously you served yourself, and then you continued as TD under Brian Cowan. Is there anything about Albert Reynolds' particular style that stands out from the rest of you?
He was far more approachable. I think Jack Lynch spoke to me once. I was only a young fellow. I was one of the class of '77. And I'm not too sure he knew who I was. There were so many of us around that time. Charlie was Charlie, you know. A good day, it was great. It was a bad day, anything could happen, Harvey said. And I think Brian, you know, Brian afterwards. But no, Albert was approachable. If there was an issue, if you wanted to get in, and you know, when you're a young TD. And you're trying to get to a minister, or you're under pressure in your constituency and you want to get in and get help. You know, I remember we had huge job losses. You remember that period in Irish history when we'd huge job losses in the early 80s. You know, there was instead of having retirement parties, they were having redundancy parties every Friday, and it was a sad period. But a lot of the old manufacturing jobs where their big employers were going, and I remember in my own area the lemon sweets, which was a favourite tobacco at the time, and I looked for help from Albert, and it was absolutely forthcoming. And finally, the company weren't interested in it, but he did everything he could, and you know, things like that and I know that was all over the country, and as well as that, from backbench TDs, I suppose backbench TDs the world over say. One of their gripes about people is that their leaders aren't accessible, or they're too busy, or they won't talk to them. Albert would go the length and breadth of the country to functions. He came to my area, but he went to the long distance halls to help TD. So he was a very approachable person. Yes, of course, he was tough. Of course, he will be remembered for the cabinet that he cleaned out and all of those things. But, you know, to be in fair to Albert, I think, and those things, that was second nature. He was running a big business.
And that was former Taoiseach Bertie Ahern discussing the career